Eddie Huang just dropped his documentary at the Toronto Film Festival. That's where he premiered it. And it's called Vice is Broke. Now, in a recent interview with Deadline, Eddie Huang broke down his relationship with two specific co-owners of Vice and just the legacy and his experience producing shows within the Vice network.
Yeah, I always saw Shane as like the Williamsburg Genghis Khan.
And Shane is Shane Smith, who was one of the co-founders.
There was a point where Vice was built on this youth cultural punk rock ethos. But, you know, it started to feel like it was a wolf in sheep's clothing, where it was clothed in the garments and aesthetics of punk rock and youth cultural values, but it was really just a way for him to grow and get to this valuation and dominate media.
How big at its height did Vice get? I mean, it had a high valuation, certainly.
Yeah, I believe the highest it got was $5.7 billion. And, you know, I just felt like Shane's ambition to grow that company was insatiable.
Now, we've heard this story so many times. People taking from the culture to build their own empire. Using the culture, abusing the culture, and maximizing off of it for your own personal gain. That's some colonizer shit, man. I was fooled. I'm not going to lie. I was fooled. I did not think that was what was happening at Vice. And I was very curious of the downfall of Vice, because there was a lot. I mean, in their video era, I was a fan. Viceland and all that, I was a fan. I was really into it. Eddie Huang talks more about one of the other problematic co-founders of Vice.
Gavin is probably the most problematic person in the history of Vice. And it's problematic because at the core, the things that people bought, the things that people were interested, it can be very much traced back to Gavin's voice and Gavin's interests. But those interests and those edgelord tendencies are entangled with hatred of a lot of different groups, whether it's women, whether it's Jewish people, whether it's immigrants. He's always seemed to had a bit of hatred for these groups. It was a very tough situation to watch your employer cover stories in Africa, stories in black communities. And it was always coming from this outsider, white hipster perspective. And they thought it was very funny, like fish out of water, you know, drop the kid off. And I was like, I get to you and everyone in Williamsburg, it's very funny. But even if you just go to South Williamsburg, where like it's predominantly Puerto Rican, they probably aren't going to like this portrayal, you know? And at that time in the early 2000s, when people were first starting to see images of these communities and these places, I felt it was very unfair that the first POV they saw it from was like a Trustafarian or a hipster from Williamsburg who like really wasn't invested in the community.
Man, I'm disappointed, man. I mean, I did feel the whole hipster vibe, but I didn't know it was this deep. And shout out to Eddie Huang for being super authentic. I know he has produced a lot of content. He's done a TV show. He's had his own documentary series. And he has also directed his own films. And he was pretty outspoken about every single project. And I think he's always ruffled feathers, but it was always with a purpose. Always in search for authenticity and truth. And that's really what I admire about Eddie Huang. And he gave his closing statements on the new film.
What kind of reaction do you anticipate getting to the film? Because you're very authentic and really leave it out there. You don't pull punches.
Thanks, Matt. I really appreciate it. Like, I don't see any of it as a negative or criticism. I never wake up and say, you know what? I'm going to make a film that really fits the algorithm of what that streamer wants. You know, I know that I don't have a mainstream voice. I really make films for the people that I feel have underrepresented voices. I will walk into any situation, and it's not just identity, but it's like, who is the little guy in this battle? And I try to take the side of the little guy or the disadvantaged. And in this case, with Vice's Broke, I didn't want to do the straightforward, objective business analysis of the downfall. I think I left room for that. Somebody could absolutely come along and do that version of this film. I wanted to give credit to the early writers who really molded and shaped this magazine and this subculture that Vice was at the core of, and highlight them in their work, and also as a cautionary tale for the young people that are artists now. When you make art, you will approach at some point the intersection of art, commerce, and the truth. And I think you have to protect the truth.
Very well said. And I just want to end this story with saying, Eddie Huang, that's the type of person that this podcast is about. Doing art at a high level, being authentically yourself, and always in search of the truth and in support of the truth. That's also relevant, friends. Shout out to Eddie Huang. Shout out to the story. Congrats on the film. I can't wait to watch it.